Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
So today, our mission is taking this massive stack of sources. We've got official lore pages, developer blogs, some really intense story analyses, and we are going to unpack the universe of a game called ARC Raiders.
Yeah, and it is a massive universe to unpack.
It really is, because we aren't just looking at the surface level mechanics here, like, how to play an extraction survival game.
Right.
We are actually excavating its world building, the psychology it forces onto its players, and this is the best part, a massive, chilling conspiracy hidden right there in the ruins.
Oh, the conspiracy is wild. We will definitely get to that.
Definitely. But first, let me set the scene for you. It's the year 2180. You're in a region called the Rust Belt.
Specifically, the post-apocalyptic ruins of southern Italy.
Yeah, right near Mount Vesuvius. And the sky is just full of lethal machines. The weather itself literally wants to kill you. And what is left of humanity is clinging to life in a crowded, claustrophobic underground subway system.
And to really understand this universe, we have to establish immediately that this is not your typical video game narrative.
Right.
You are not a chosen hero destined to save the world. There's no grand prophecy about your arrival.
You're just a nobody, really.
Exactly. You are just a raider, a scavenger. This entire experience is built around the concept of absolute scarcity, where the mechanics of survival directly mirror a brutal, generations-long history of human betrayal.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I'm looking at these sources, and there's a huge gap between the planet collapsing and these machines actually showing up.
Right, the timeline, it's interesting.
Yeah, like what actually happened in that blind spot. Because the apocalypse in this universe wasn't just a single bad Tuesday, right? It looks more like a prolonged strangulation.
That's a great way to put it. The lore describes it as a 1-2 punch, and the first blow was entirely self-inflicted.
Humanity's classic mistake.
Always. So throughout the late 20th and early 21st centuries, the Earth suffered what they call the collapse.
Which was this total global ecological breakdown, right?
Yeah, total breakdown. And the sources highlight a desperate global initiative called Project Heartwood.
Oh, right, the tree project.
Exactly. It was supposed to be this massive joint effort by governments and corporations to avert environmental collapse. But it failed completely.
It totally fell apart.
The planet was simply too devastated, the resources too depleted.
Which actually explains one of the most striking aesthetic choices in this world.
The cassette futurism.
Yes. Because progress halted so violently during the collapse, the survivors in 2180 aren't using sleek holograms or, I don't know, quantum computers.
Right, there's no polished sci-fi tech here.
No, they are relying on recycled analog tech from the 1970s and 80s. Like digital infrastructure was either wiped out or just couldn't be maintained.
Yeah.
So you're surviving on magnetic tapes, heavy cathode ray tube monitors.
Massive, clunky antennas.
Exactly. It's high-tech survival, but it's running on heavy, tactile, low-tech junk.
It feels very grounded, but the foundational trauma of this universe actually happens a bit later in the year 2054.
The Exodus.
The Exodus. As the Earth was literally suffocating under toxic dust, the global elites made a calculation.
A very cold calculation.
Very cold. Instead of doubling down on saving the planet, they pooled their remaining resources and built massive launch complexes.
Like the Asira spaceport, right? Which you can actually explore in the Rust Belt.
Yeah, you can walk right through it in the game. And they basically used these spaceports to abandon the planet. They simply left everyone else behind to choke.
It's so dark. The sources mention these chilling graffiti tags left behind on the rusting spaceport walls.
Oh, the environmental storytelling there is fantastic.
It really is. If you walk through those ruins, you see messages from the people who are condemned to die, screaming things like, "Only the rich leave, and make room for all."
It paints such a grim picture.
Like the Earth was the Titanic, the billionaires took the only lifeboats, and just as the survivors started floating on the wreckage...
The sky started raining anvils.
Exactly.
Well, the people left behind actually did manage to scrape together a fragile recovery first.
Oh, right. They survived for a bit.
Yeah, for nearly a century, they fought back against the dying ecology. They called it the Sunrise Era.
A little bit of hope.
A tiny bit. By 2145, they had built these massive hydroponic domes and were actively trying to resurrect agriculture.
They really thought the worst was behind them.
They did. But there was no warning for what came next. Massive, shapeless metal objects began plummeting from orbit.
The ARC machines. Autonomous recon combatants.
Yeah, they struck the Earth like a meteor shower, and they didn't attempt to communicate at all.
Just straight to violence.
Immediately. They systematically began exterminating anything biological in their path, initiating a decade-long slaughter known as the First Wave.
Okay, I have a question about that, though. Fast forward to today, the year 2180. You'd think a literal robotic invasion from the sky would finally force humanity to drop their petty grievances, like hold hands and fight back together.
You would think so.
But the players in this game, the raiders, they're constantly shooting each other on sight instead of teaming up against the machines. Why are we still killing each other when there are literal killer robots roaming the hills?
Well, the lore provides a brilliant, tragic justification for that behavior through an event called the Battle of Victory Ridge.
Victory Ridge.
Yeah. During that first wave, humanity actually did unite. Under a brilliant commander named Major Iva, they worked together, shared resources, and managed to defeat the massive early ARC machines known as Barons.
Right, and if you walk the map today, you can still see the shadows of their giant, smoking husks dominating the landscape.
It's a huge visual reminder.
So it was a triumph. Humanity wins. We figured out how to beat them.
Well, sort of. The moment the battle was won, the unity evaporated completely.
Of course it did.
The survivors looked at the incredible technological scrap left behind by the Barons, realized how valuable it was, and immediately turned their weapons on each other.
Just instantly.
Instantly. They slaughtered their comrades over the spoils of war. The person who watched your back in the trenches was suddenly shooting you in the head for a piece of metal.
That is incredibly bleak.
It sets the tone for everything.
It does. And it perfectly explains where humanity is forced to live now during the second wave of the invasion, which is Speranza.
Ah, Speranza.
Yeah, it's this underground hub built into the collapsed sinkholes of Toledo, which, by the way, our sources note is actually a nod to a famous street and metro stop in Naples.
Which is a cool little real-world tie-in.
Definitely. But try to picture this for a second. You are living in a dripping, claustrophobic tunnel system held together by rusted pipes, buzzing neon signs, and just constant suffocating fear.
And Speranza is no utopia of shared struggle either.
Not at all.
It is rigidly controlled by the OTTM, the official Toledo Tubes management.
Sounds like a boring bureaucratic office.
It does, but it's essentially a ruthless shadow mafia. They hoard the clean water supplies and extort heavy tribute just to let people use the exit tunnels to reach the surface.
And to survive down there, you have to deal with the traders.
Right.
And the sources make it clear these aren't just generic vending machines where you press a button and get a gun.
No, they're actual characters.
Yeah, they are the broken, fascinating people holding this fragile economy together. Take someone like Celeste.
The administrator.
Right. She's desperately trying to plan for a long-term future, but she's constantly stonewalled by the OTTM mafia who just want short-term profit.
Naturally.
And then you have Tian Wen, this recluse gunsmith. He absolutely hates new raiders.
Can't stand them.
But he's essential because he's the only one figuring out how to reverse engineer the robot parts into human weapons.
He's the only reason anyone survives on the surface.
Exactly. And then there's Lance.
Oh, Lance.
Lance is an eccentric, amnesiac android medic who boxes and sings karaoke.
He's quite the character.
He really is.
Yeah.
But it shows that it's a society just hanging by a thread.
And game designers actually called this synergy between the story and the gameplay ludonarrative resonance.
Hold on, ludonarrative what? Break that down for me.
Ludonarrative resonance. It refers to when the actual gameplay mechanics perfectly match the story the game is trying to tell.
Okay, so how does that work here?
Well, the lore says humanity betrayed each other at Victory Ridge out of greed, right?
Right.
In the game, the very real fear of losing your hard-earned gear on the surface creates a paranoid, kill-on-sight culture among the actual players.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the mechanics actively force you to experience the exact same paranoia, greed, and mistrust that doomed the human factions in the story.
I love that. It's the ultimate prisoner's dilemma.
It really is.
Just imagine stepping out of Speranza. It's like opening a submarine hatch at the bottom of the ocean. The pressure of the environment is instantly trying to crush you.
A literal pressure cooker.
Yeah. You step onto the surface, the wind is howling, and you hear footsteps crunching in the dirt behind you. You have to ask yourself, is this person going to help me fight a robot? Or are they going to shoot me for the salvage in my backpack?
You can't trust anyone.
You really can't,
Yeah.
because the environment breeds absolute desperation.
And since humans cannot be trusted, a logical player might think the strategy is simply to avoid other players entirely, right?
Sure, just hide.
Stick to the shadows, focus solely on fighting the machines. But the developers anticipated that.
Oh, they always do.
The environment itself, the Rust Belt, is dynamically hostile. It acts as a third faction that is actively trying to erase you.
The map conditions.
Yes.
You aren't just fighting enemies, you are fighting a living disaster. Like, there are electromagnetic storms that crack the sky and fry your navigational gear,
Which is terrifying.
and night raids that cause the ARC machines to become hyper-aggressive. And then, of course, there's the hurricane condition.
Oh man, the hurricane condition is a masterclass in atmospheric design.
Sounds brutal.
It is. The climate of southern Italy in 2181 is violently unpredictable, and the game forces you to physically deal with that weather.
The sources describe it as terrifying, because this isn't just a visual filter on your screen.
No, it affects everything.
Right. The winds are so strong, they physically alter your ballistics. If you throw a grenade, the wind will actually push it off course.
And the flying debris actually strips and sparks against your energy shields.
Yes. Picture being in pitch darkness, and the friction from the storm is lighting up your shield, turning you into a glowing beacon for enemies.
That's a nightmare.
And the visibility drops so low that these giant metal monsters just become massive jump scares emerging from the dust.
And to navigate this sensory overload, the developers at Embark Studios made a radical design choice.
What do they do?
During development, they actually slowed down the player's movement speed by a full 60%.
Wait, stop right there. You're saying the game designers deliberately made an action game slower.
Yes.
That seems really counterintuitive.
It does on paper. But if players moved at the hyper-fast speed of a traditional arcade shooter, the beautifully crafted, ruined world just became blurred background noise.
Ah, I see.
By forcing you to move at a heavy, grounded pace, they make you feel the terrifying scale of the environment. You cannot just run and gun your way out of a bad situation.
You have to be deliberate.
Exactly. And because you are forced to move slowly, your ears become your primary radar.
Which explains the procedural soundscape.
Precisely.
You aren't just listening for generic footsteps. You are listening to an entire interconnected ecosystem communicating with itself.
It's all connected.
Yeah, every ARC machine has a unique electronic hum that changes pitch based on its state. You can hear them passively searching, and you can hear the exact moment their hum spikes into combat mode long before you ever see them through the fog.
And what's fascinating here is that the ARC ecosystem is entirely interdependent. We aren't looking at generic soldiers standing at guard posts.
Right.
Consider how they interact. If you make a mistake and alert a snitch, which is a small flying drone, it doesn't even attack you.
It just watches you.
It acts as an acoustic beacon, communicating with the broader network, and suddenly, massive dropships are called in.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah. They deploy airborne hornets to cut off your physical escape routes.
And the ground forces push you out of cover. You've got swarming ticks crawling on the ceilings waiting to drop on you.
It's overwhelming.
And the new updates are adding the Firefly, which flushes you out with flamethrowers, and the Comet, a heavily armored, explosive rolling ball that breaches your defenses.
But the scale breaks entirely when you encounter the Queen.
The Queen.
Yes. The sources describe her as being the size of an apartment building.
An apartment building that is insane.
And she is furiously defending these massive industrial structures called harvesters. They are gathering resources, patrolling, and eliminating threats with cold industrial efficiency.
So we aren't really fighting an army then.
No, not at all.
It's an automated planetary immune system responding to an infection, and humanity is the virus. It's pest control, and we're the pests.
That framing is crucial for understanding the ultimate mystery of the game.
Right.
We know how the ARC machines fight, and we know what they are doing, but why are they here?
Here's where it gets really interesting. This brings us to the biggest lore secret hidden in the game's environmental storytelling. What if the ARC machines aren't an alien invasion at all?
Right. The community has actually dubbed it the Exodus conspiracy.
Okay, lay it out for me.
The hypothesis is that these machines were not sent by extraterrestrials, but by the descendants of the human elites.
Wow.
The very same billionaires and politicians who fled Earth during the 2054 Exodus.
Wait, hold on. So you're telling me we aren't fighting Independence Day aliens? We're basically fighting heavily armed, aggressive Roombas sent by our own ancestors to clean up the mess they left behind.
That's exactly what the theory suggests, and the evidence written directly into the world is chillingly convincing.
What kind of evidence?
Well, look at the method of arrival. The Codex clearly states that ARC machines drop from orbit.
Right, we mentioned that.
But specifically from the exact orbital positions where the old human space stations and launch platforms were located, They don't arrive from deep space.
Okay, that's a massive red flag right there.
And consider their behavior. If they were an alien military seeking genocide, their tactics would revolve around systematically wiping out Speranza and the underground tunnels.
They just bomb the sinkholes.
Exactly. But the sources note they spend an enormous amount of time probing the soil and running those giant harvesters.
They act like industrial mining equipment.
Yes. Some deep dive analysts have theorized that ARC doesn't stand for Autonomous Recon Combatants at all. It actually stands for Autonomous Resource Collection.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But if they are human-made, why don't they speak to us?
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't the elites program them to recognize human survivors and negotiate?
Because to a mining corporation centuries removed, you aren't human anymore.
Ow.
You are just indigenous fauna interfering with the harvest.
We're literally just pests.
Yes. And the final piece of evidence confirms this shared origin. It's human compatibility.
Like with Tianwen.
Exactly. Traders like Tianwen are able to reverse engineer ARC parts to create human weapons and energy shields. If this were radically alien technology, that integration would be physically impossible.
The physics just wouldn't match.
Right. But the ARC parts have human serial numbers, letters, and industrial markings stamped right on the metal.
No way.
Yeah, they operate on our terrestrial physics because they stem from the exact same human engineering foundation.
That is completely mind-blowing.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it fundamentally changes the player's identity.
It really does.
It is not an alien invasion, it is an interstellar class war. The elites who abandon a polluted planet are now trying to strip mine the ruins for whatever resources are left.
And the raiders.
The descendants of the people they left behind to suffocate, they are classified by these drones as biological waste. We are just an obstacle to the mining operation.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? It brings us right back to the core theme of this entire universe, which is scarcity.
Total scarcity.
I want you to really think about this scenario. If you lived in Speranza, if your supposedly safe underground life, your food, your water, all depended on the supplies you could only get by risking your neck on a toxic surface ruled by corporate mining machines and greedy, desperate humans.
It's a heavy choice.
Would you open that submarine hatch? When you step out of that door, are you risking your life to bring supplies back to your community, or are you going to shoot your neighbor in the back for their loot?
It is a profound moral test played out every single time a raider decides to queue into a map.
Absolutely.
But before we conclude, I want to leave you with one final, haunting mystery to ponder on your own.
Well, I like a good mystery.
We discussed Lance earlier, the amnesiac android medic in Speranza.
Right, the eccentric guy who sings karaoke but claims he doesn't know where he came from or who built him.
Well, in an upcoming update called Flashpoint, new, incredibly lethal cleanup robots called shredders are going to be escaping from an old indoor medical research facility called Stella Montis.
Okay, Stella Montis.
And the narrative reason provided for their escape. Simply that someone forgot to close the door.
A catastrophic mistake in a world where mistakes usually mean death.
Precisely. But the real secret is inside that freezing facility. Players exploring Stella Montis can actually find the bodies of dozens of deactivated, dead androids.
Okay.
And every single one of them looks exactly like Lance.
Wait. If those androids are identical to Lance, that implies his amnesia isn't a medical condition or a glitch. It's a deliberate programming wipe.
Exactly. What is the link between human consciousness, these discarded androids in a medical facility, and the ARC intelligence?
I got chills.
Were these androids an early attempt by the elites to achieve immortality before the Exodus? Could Lance be an unwitting spy for the machines? Or perhaps a forgotten bridge between humanity and the ARC network?
It's a literal transhumanist nightmare waiting to be unraveled by the community.
It really is.
So the next time you open that door and step out into the howling mechanical storm, remember that the monsters hunting you might just be carrying our own fingerprints.
Just biological waste to them.
Are you the survivor or just the waste they haven't cleaned up yet? Keep your ears open, keep your shields charged, and whatever you do, don't trust the footsteps behind you.